I'll never forget the exact moment I realized my boss had been lying to me for 11 months straight. It wasn't during some dramatic office showdown or heated argument. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I was standing in the break room watching him laugh with the new guy, the one who'd just gotten the promotion that was supposed to be mine, the promotion I'd been promised, the promotion I'd sacrificed everything for. And in that moment, everything clicked. Every late night, every canceled plan, every promise, every just a little longer, and we're almost there. And you're next in line, I promise. All of it. Lies. And that's when I made the decision that would change my entire life. Before we dive into this story, I need you to do something for me real quick. Type your country in the comments right now. I want to see where all of you are watching from because this story, this moment of standing up for yourself, it's universal. It doesn't matter if you're in New York or Nigeria, London or Lagos, Tokyo or Toronto. We've all been there. We've all been lied to. We've all been taken advantage of. So drop your country below, hit that subscribe button because I've got more stories like this that'll make you feel seen, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's being strung along right now. Someone who's being used. Someone who needs permission to walk away. All right, let's get into it. My name's irrelevant to this story, but what matters is that I was good at my job, like really good. I worked for a mid-sized tech marketing firm in the city. Nothing fancy, nothing Silicon Valley level, but respectable. We handled campaigns for local businesses, some regional brands, a few national clients here and there. I was a senior account manager, which sounds impressive until you realize it just meant I did the work of 3 people for the salary of 1. But I didn't complain. I loved what I did. I loved building relationships with clients, crafting campaigns that actually moved the needle, seeing real results. I was one of those people who actually cared about the work, not just clocking in and out, but genuinely invested. My boss, let's call him Derek, was the kind of guy who was incredibly charismatic when he wanted to be. Mid-40s, always wore these expensive suits that were just a touch too tight, like he'd bought them when he was 20 pounds lighter and refused to admit he needed a new size. He had this laugh that filled the entire office, this big booming sound that made you think everything was going great even when it wasn't. He was the type who'd remember your birthday, ask about your kids if you had them, compliment your work in front of clients. But there was always this edge to him, this sense that everything was transactional. Every kindness had a price. Every compliment had a purpose. I'd been with the company for 4 years when this all started. 4 solid years of consistent performance, exceeding targets, landing new clients, keeping existing ones happy. I wasn't just good. I was essential, and I knew it. So did Derek. That's why when our director of client strategy position opened up, a role that would mean a significant raise, a real title, a seat at the leadership table, actual decision-making power, I thought I was a shoo-in. I'd been doing half that job already without the title or the pay. It was a Friday afternoon in March when Derek called me into his office. The sun was streaming through those cheap vertical blinds that never close properly, creating these stripes of light across his desk. He had that look on his face, that serious expression he'd put on when he wanted you to know something important was happening. He gestured to the chair across from him, that leather chair that squeaked no matter how carefully you sat down. And I remember thinking this was it. This was the moment. "Close the door," he said, and my heart jumped. Good news always came behind closed doors, right? Bad news was delivered in public, quick and surgical. But closed-door meetings meant promotions, raises, opportunities. I closed it and sat down, trying not to look too eager, trying to play it cool even though inside I was already mentally calculating what I'd do with the extra salary. Derek leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled in that way people do when they're about to say something they think is profound. "I'm going to be straight with you," he started, and I loved him for it in that moment. Straight talk, respect. That's what I wanted. "You know the director position we posted? You know I've been looking at candidates." I nodded. Of course I knew. I'd been stalking the job posting online, refreshing it obsessively, wondering when I'd get the call. "I want it to be you," he said, and my entire body relaxed. I want it to be you. Those words were everything. You've proven yourself. You've got the skills. The clients love you. The team respects you. You're the obvious choice. But then came the pause. That tiny hesitation that should have been my first warning sign. But, he continued, and that word landed like a stone in my stomach, I need you to prove to the executive team that you can handle it. They're not convinced yet. They think you're great at what you do, but they don't know if you can operate at a strategic level. So here's what I'm proposing. He slid a folder across his desk. Inside were details for 3 major client pitches, all scheduled over the next few months. Big accounts, the kind that would make or break our year. Land 2 out of these 3, Derek said, tapping the folder, and the job is yours. Show them you can perform under pressure. Show them you can think strategically. Show them your director material. Do this, and I'll go to bat for you with the executives. I'll make sure this happens. I should have asked questions. I should have asked for something in writing. I should have asked what timeline we were talking about. I should have asked if other candidates were being given the same test. But I didn't. I was too excited, too hungry, too convinced that this was my moment. I'll do it, I said without hesitation. I'll land all 3. Derek smiled, that big charismatic smile that made you feel like you were part of something special. That's what I like to hear. I believe in you. Let's make this happen. We shook hands and I left his office walking on air. I called my partner that night, told them about the opportunity, about how this was going to change everything for us. We could finally start saving for a house. We could take that vacation we'd been putting off. We could breathe a little easier. Everything was about to get better. The first pitch was in April, a regional restaurant chain looking to revamp their entire brand presence, social media strategy, local advertising, the works. It was a 6-figure contract, the kind of account that would make our quarter. I threw myself into it completely. I was at the office until 9, 10, 11 at night. I canceled weekend plans to refine the presentation. I researched every detail about their business, their competitors, their target demographics, their pain points. I built a pitch deck that was absolutely killer, full of insights and strategies and creative ideas that I knew would blow them away. The day of the pitch, I barely slept. I got to the office at 6 in the morning to run through everything one more time. Derek stopped by my desk around 8, gave me a fist bump, told me I was going to crush it. The presentation was at 10. Their entire leadership team came to our office, 5 people sitting around our conference table, and I performed. I mean, I really performed. Every slide was smooth. Every answer to their questions was confident and informed. I could see them nodding, leaning in, making those little noises people make when they're impressed. When it was over, their CEO stood up and shook my hand and said, "This is exactly what we've been looking for." We won the account. I found out 2 days later when Derek called me into his office again. Same chair, same squeaky leather. But this time he was beaming. "You did it," he said. "They signed this morning. This is huge. This is exactly what I'm talking about. 1 down, 2 to go." He didn't mention the promotion, didn't mention any timeline. Just 2 to go. And I was too high on the success to push for details. I'd proven myself. I was on the path. That's all that mattered. The second pitch came in June. A local tech startup looking for launch marketing, all digital, influencer partnerships, content creation, everything. Smaller account than the restaurant chain, but more complex, more moving parts. I went through the same process. Late nights, sacrificed weekends, research until my eyes burned. I brought in ideas from outside our usual scope, suggested partnerships with local creators I'd been following on my own time, built out a launch timeline that was aggressive but achievable. The pitch went even better than the first one. They signed within a week, 2 for 2. I was unstoppable. I was proving everything Derek had asked me to prove. I was showing strategic thinking, client relations, execution, everything. After the second win, I walked into Derek's office without an appointment, riding high on confidence. 2 down, I said, leaning against the doorframe. When do we talk about the timeline for the promotion? Derek looked up from his computer, and there was this flicker of something across his face. Annoyance, maybe? Surprise that I was asking? But it was gone in a second, replaced by that big smile. Soon, he said, Let's get the third one locked down first. You're doing amazing. Just keep this momentum going." And then he turned back to his computer, a clear dismissal. I should have pushed. I should have demanded specifics, but I didn't. I was too close to the finish line. I just needed to land one more. The third pitch was in August, the biggest one yet, a national retail brand looking to expand into our region, massive budget, year-long contract, the kind of account that would define our company's success for the next fiscal year. This wasn't just about my promotion anymore. This was about proving I could play at the highest level. Derek told me this was the one that would seal the deal. "Land this," he said, "and I'm walking straight into the executive boardroom and demanding they give you that position. You'll be director of client strategy by September." September, a date, finally a concrete timeline. I latched onto that like a lifeline. September meant 6 weeks after the pitch. 6 weeks until my life changed. I worked harder on that pitch than anything I'd ever done in my career. I barely saw my partner for a month. I was surviving on coffee and takeout and 4 hours of sleep. I was missing workouts, missing social events, missing life. But it was fine because it was temporary. It was an investment. It was going to pay off. The pitch was the first week of August, and it was perfect. I mean, absolutely flawless. The client was engaged, asking great questions, clearly excited about our vision. I walked out of that conference room knowing I'd done everything right. And I was right to feel that way, because 3 days later, they signed. 3 for 3. I'd done it. I'd done everything Derek asked and more. I'd proven myself beyond any doubt. I was director material. I'd earned it. I waited for Derek to call me into his office. I waited for the celebration, the congratulations, the conversation about next steps. But it didn't come. Not that day, not the next day, not the day after that. By the end of the week, I was confused. By the middle of the next week, I was concerned. By the end of August, I was worried. September 1st came and went. No conversation, no announcement, nothing. Every time I tried to bring it up with Derek, he was busy, in a meeting, on a call, had to run to another appointment. He'd give me that same smile, that same, soon, we'll talk soon, but soon never came. September turned into October. October turned into November. I was still doing the same job, still carrying the same title, still getting paid the same salary, but now I was also managing all three of those massive accounts I'd won. I'd added all this responsibility, all this value to the company, and gotten nothing in return except vague promises and an increasingly uncomfortable feeling in my gut. But I told myself to be patient. These things took time. Corporate processes were slow. Derek was working on it behind the scenes. I just needed to trust the process. Then came the Monday morning in mid-November that changed everything. I walked into the office at my usual time, 7:30, early enough to get some work done before the chaos started. The energy in the office felt weird immediately. People were clustered around desks whispering. There was this buzz in the air, that particular frequency of office gossip that you can feel before you hear it. I grabbed my coffee from the break room and headed to my desk, and that's when I saw him. There was a guy I didn't recognize sitting in the empty office next to Derek's, the office that had been empty since the director of client strategy had left back in March. He was youngish, maybe early 30s, unpacking a box of personal items, hanging up pictures, arranging books on the shelf. He looked comfortable. He looked settled. He looked like he belonged there. And my stomach dropped. I found Sarah, one of the account coordinators I was close with, and pulled her aside. "Who's the new guy?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual even though my heart was hammering. Sarah looked uncomfortable. "You didn't hear," she said quietly. "That's Brandon. He's the new director of client strategy. Derek announced it this morning before you got in. He starts today." The world tilted. Director of client strategy. The role I'd been promised. The role I'd been working toward for 11 months. The role I'd sacrificed everything for. Given to someone else. Someone I'd never even heard of. Someone who definitely hadn't pitched 3 major clients successfully. Someone who definitely hadn't proven themselves the way I had. I felt like I was going to be sick. I walked straight to Derek's office. I didn't knock. I just opened the door and walked in. He looked up, surprised. and had the decency to look uncomfortable when he saw my face. "We need to talk," I said, and I was amazed at how steady my voice was because inside I was screaming, "Now!" Derek stood up, closed the door behind me, and gestured to that same squeaky chair I'd sat in so many times before. "I know you're upset," he started, and I almost laughed at the understatement. Upset didn't even begin to cover it. "Let me explain. You promised me that position," I said, cutting him off. "You told me to land those 3 accounts and it was mine. I landed them. I landed all 3, and you gave the job to someone else. So explain. Explain how that makes any sense." Derek sighed, ran his hand through his hair, did that whole performance of looking conflicted. "The executives made the final call," he said. "Brandon has more experience at the director level. He came from a bigger firm. They felt he was the safer choice for the role. I fought for you, I really did, but I was outvoted." "You fought for me," I repeated flatly. "You fought for me. After I spent 11 months doing exactly what you asked. After I brought in 3 major accounts. After I proved myself over and over again. You fought for me, but not hard enough to actually make it happen." "It's not that simple," Derek said, and now there was an edge to his voice, a hint of irritation that I was pushing this. "Business decisions are complicated. There are politics involved. I needed to balance what I wanted with what was best for the company." "What about what was best for me?" I asked, and I hated how my voice cracked a little. "What about the promise you made? What about the fact that I've been doing director-level work without director-level pay for almost a year now? What about any of that?" Derek leaned forward, and now the charismatic mask was slipping. Now I was seeing something else underneath. Impatience, annoyance, calculation. "You're still a senior account manager," he said. "You're still valuable to this team. You're still going to work on those accounts you brought in. This doesn't change your role here. You're acting like this is personal when it's just business." Just business. Those words hit me like a slap. It was just business. All of it. Every promise. Every "I believe in you." Every late night I'd worked while he went home to his family. Every weekend I'd sacrificed while he played golf. Every opportunity I'd missed in my personal life while I made his company more money. Just business. And I realized in that moment that I'd been an idiot. I'd been played. He'd never intended to promote me. He'd dangled that carrot to squeeze every ounce of productivity out of me, to get me to land those accounts, and now that I'd served my purpose, the carrot was being handed to someone else. "So what now?" I asked. "I just go back to my desk and pretend this didn't happen? I just keep working the same job for the same pay while managing 3 major accounts I brought in, while watching the guy who got my promotion sit in that office?" "I'd like you to train Brandon," Derek said, and I genuinely thought I'd misheard him. "He's going to need to get up to speed on those accounts. You've built the relationships. You know the clients. It would be best for everyone if you helped him transition into the role. Train him. Train the man who got my job. Help him succeed in the position I'd earned. Make sure he looked good doing the work I'd set up." And Derek said this like it was reasonable, like it was just another task to add to my list, like I should be grateful for the opportunity to ensure my own replacement was successful. I stood up. My legs felt shaky, but I stood up. "No," I said simply. Derek blinked, surprised. Apparently nobody said no to him very often. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean no," I repeated. "I'm not training him. I'm not helping him. I'm not doing any of that, because I'm done." "You're done?" Derek's voice rose slightly. "What does that mean, you're done? You're upset, I get it, but don't be dramatic. You have a good job here. You have a future here. Don't throw that away because you're emotional right now." Emotional. That word was designed to diminish what I was feeling, to make my completely justified anger seem irrational. "I'm not being emotional," I said, and I felt this weird calm settling over me. "I'm being clear. You lied to me. You used me. You got what you needed from me and then threw me aside. And I'm not going to stick around and let you keep doing it." "So what, you're quitting?" Derek laughed, actually laughed. "Over this? Do you know how hard it is to find another job at your level? Do you know how bad it'll look on your resume to leave without another position lined up?" You're going to tank your career because you didn't get one promotion? And there it was, the threat, the implication that I needed him more than he needed me, that I should be grateful for whatever scraps he threw my way, that leaving would be career suicide. But here's the thing, I didn't care anymore. I was done being afraid. I was done being grateful for being exploited. I was done letting someone else dictate my worth. I'll take my chances, I said, and I walked out of his office. I walked straight to my desk, shut down my computer, and started packing my personal items. Photos, my coffee mug, the little plant I'd kept alive for 3 years, books, notebooks, all the pieces of my life that had accumulated in that space over 4 years. People were watching now. The whole office had gone quiet. They could feel something was happening. Derek came out of his office, face red. "You're really doing this?" he called across the office, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You're really going to walk out like this?" I turned to face him, and I saw Brandon standing in the doorway of his new office, watching this unfold with wide eyes. "Yeah," I said, "I really am." "You're making a huge mistake," Derek said, and now he was walking toward me, trying to regain control of the situation. "You're burning bridges. You're going to regret this." I finished packing my box, picked it up, and looked him right in the eye. "The only thing I regret," I said clearly, "is believing you in the first place. Believing that hard work mattered, believing that you were a man of your word, believing that loyalty went both ways. That was my mistake, but I'm done making it." I walked to the elevator. Derek didn't follow. Nobody said anything. The office was silent except for the sound of my footsteps and the soft ding of the elevator arriving. I stepped inside, turned around, and took one last look at that place. At the desk I'd sat at for 4 years. At the conference room where I'd pitched and won those 3 accounts. At Derek, standing in the middle of the office, looking shocked and angry and impotent. And at Brandon, the guy who'd taken my job, looking incredibly uncomfortable about being in the middle of this. The doors closed, and I rode down to the ground floor feeling lighter than I had in months. I sat in my car for probably 20 minutes, just processing what had happened. I'd quit. I'd actually quit. No backup plan, no other job lined up, no safety net, just pure reaction to being pushed too far. And weirdly, I didn't feel panicked. I felt free. I felt like I'd been holding my breath for 11 months and finally exhaled. My phone started buzzing, messages from coworkers, some supportive, some asking if I was okay, some asking what the hell had just happened. I ignored them all and drove home. My partner was shocked when I walked in the door at 10 in the morning on a Monday. "What happened?" they asked immediately, seeing my face, seeing the box of my desk items. I told them everything, the whole story, the 11-month manipulation, the broken promises, the dismissive conversation that morning, the decision to walk out. And when I was done, I waited for them to tell me I'd been impulsive, that I should have waited, that I should have lined something else up first. But they didn't say any of that. They just hugged me and said, "I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. We'll figure the rest out." That night I couldn't sleep. My brain was spinning with everything, replaying conversations, wondering if I'd overreacted, calculating how long our savings would last, spiraling through worst-case scenarios. But underneath all the anxiety, there was this solid core of knowing I'd done the right thing. I'd drawn a line. I'd said, "This is how I will not be treated," and that mattered more than the security I'd walked away from. The next morning, I started making calls. I reached out to former colleagues. I updated my LinkedIn. I started browsing job boards, not desperately, but strategically. I wasn't going to jump at the first thing that came along. I wasn't going to take another position where I'd be undervalued. I knew my worth now. I'd proven it with those 3 major accounts. I just needed to find a place that would recognize it. And if that took time, I was okay with that. I'd rather be unemployed and respected than employed and exploited. A week went by, then 2. I had a few interviews, casual conversations with recruiters, coffee meetings with people in my network. Nothing solid yet, but nothing desperate either. I was surprisingly okay. I was sleeping better. I had time to work out again. I saw friends I hadn't seen in months. My partner and I had actual conversations instead of me being distracted by work stress. I remembered what it felt like to not be constantly anxious about proving myself. Then about 3 weeks after I walked out, I got a LinkedIn message from someone I didn't know. Her name was Jennifer, and she was the founder of a boutique marketing agency I'd heard of, but never worked with. They were smaller than Derek's firm, but had a reputation for doing really innovative work with conscious brands, companies that actually cared about more than just profit. Her message was brief. She'd heard about what happened at my old job. The story had apparently spread through the industry faster than I'd realize. She wanted to talk. I agreed to meet her for coffee the next day. Jennifer was probably in her early 50s, with this energy that was both calm and intense at the same time. She'd built her company from scratch 15 years ago and had kept it deliberately small. 20 people, all incredibly talented, all treated well. She told me she'd been following my work for a while, had been impressed by some campaigns I'd run that she'd seen in industry publications. And then she said something that stopped me cold. "I heard you walked out after your boss broke a promotion promise," she said. "I heard you refused to train your replacement and just left. And I have to tell you, that made me want to hire you even more." I must have looked confused because she laughed. "Most people in this industry have learned to swallow their self-respect," she continued. "They've learned to smile and nod and accept whatever scraps they're given because they're afraid of rocking the boat. But someone who will walk away from a steady paycheck because they refuse to be disrespected? Someone who knows their worth and isn't afraid to enforce it? That's rare. That's the kind of person I want on my team." She offered me a position, not account manager, not senior, anything. Director of Client Relations. Real title, real authority, real decision-making power, and a salary that was 30% higher than what I'd been making at my old job. I could have cried right there in that coffee shop. "I don't want to pressure you," Jennifer said, "but I've been looking to fill this role for 6 months. I haven't found the right person. I think you're the right person. Think about it. Talk to your partner. But I hope you'll say yes." I said yes before I even left the coffee shop. I started 2 weeks later. And let me tell you, the difference was night and day. Jennifer actually valued her employees. She actually kept her promises. When she said something was going to happen, it happened. When she said she believed in you, she showed it with actions, not just words. The work was challenging but rewarding. The clients were aligned with values I cared about. The team was collaborative instead of competitive. I'd found a place where I actually wanted to be, not just a place I was tolerating for a paycheck. But here's where the story gets really interesting. About 2 months after I started my new job, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was one of the clients from my old firm. The restaurant chain, the first of those 3 big accounts I'd landed. The CEO, the guy who'd been so impressed with my pitch back in April. "I hope this isn't inappropriate," he said, "but I wanted to reach out directly. We've been working with your old firm for 6 months now, and it's been a disaster. The guy they put on our account, Brandon I think his name is, doesn't understand our business. He's fumbling the strategy. He's not responsive. Nothing is working the way you promised it would. And I recently found out you left the company and are at a new agency. I wanted to ask if you'd be interested in bringing our business over to where you are now." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The account I'd landed, the account Derek had used me to win, the account he'd given to Brandon to manage, was falling apart. And now the client wanted to follow me to my new firm. "I'd need to talk to my boss," I said carefully, "but if she's open to it, I'd love to work with you again." Jennifer was more than open to it. She was thrilled. We brought the restaurant chain on as a client, and I got to rebuild the relationship properly this time. Do the work the right way, without someone breathing down my neck about arbitrary metrics and impossible timelines. But wait, it gets better. Within a month of that, the tech startup, my second big win from my old job, reached out with the same story. Their launch had been mediocre. Brandon didn't understand their industry. They wanted to work with me again. They became our client. And then, because the universe has a sense of humor, the national retail brand, the massive account that was supposed to seal my promotion, the biggest win of all 3, called. Same story. Disappointed with the service. Heard I was at a new agency. Wanted to move their business, all 3 of them. All three accounts I'd won for Derek, accounts that were probably generating a quarter of his firm's revenue, walked out the door and followed me to my new job. I found out later, through the industry grapevine, that Derek's firm took a massive hit. Losing three major accounts in quick succession looked terrible. There were layoffs. Brandon, the golden boy who was supposed to be such a safe choice, got fired. Derek's reputation took a hit. People started questioning his leadership. The executives who'd chosen Brandon over me were apparently scrambling. And me? I was thriving. I was doing the best work of my career. I was being compensated fairly. I was being treated with respect. I was building something real instead of just chasing carrots that would never materialize. About 6 months into my new job, I was at an industry conference, one of those networking events where everyone pretends to care about presentations, but really just wants to exchange business cards and gossip. I was talking to a potential client when I saw him across the room. Derek. He looked older somehow, tired. That big charismatic energy was dimmed. He saw me at the same moment I saw him, and I watched him decide whether to come over or pretend he hadn't noticed me. He came over. "Can we talk?" he asked, and I excused myself from my conversation. We found a quiet corner, and for a moment he just stood there, looking uncomfortable in a way I'd never seen him look before. "I heard about the accounts," he finally said. "I heard they followed you." I didn't say anything. What was there to say? "I underestimated you," he continued. "I made a mistake. I should have promoted you when I said I would. I should have valued what you brought to the table, and now I'm paying for it." Part of me wanted to gloat. Part of me wanted to list every way he'd screwed me over and make him acknowledge each one. But I didn't. Because the truth was, I didn't need his apology or his acknowledgement anymore. I'd already moved past him. "I hope you learned something from this," I said simply. "I hope you don't do this to the next person." He nodded, looking defeated, and walked away. That was the last time I saw him. Here's what I learned from all of this. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. When someone makes you a promise, get it in writing. When someone asks you to prove yourself over and over while dangling a reward just out of reach, they're not testing you, they're using you. And most importantly, walking away from a bad situation, even when it's scary, even when you don't have a perfect backup plan, even when everyone tells you you're being impulsive, is sometimes the most powerful thing you can do. It's not about burning bridges. It's about refusing to be the bridge that everyone walks over. I could have stayed. I could have swallowed my anger, trained Brandon, kept my head down, and waited for the next opportunity that might or might not come. Plenty of people do. Plenty of people have told me they would have. But I didn't, and it changed my life. Not just because I ended up in a better job with better pay, though that's obviously nice, but because I proved to myself that I was worth more than how Derek treated me. I proved that my skills were marketable. I proved that standing up for yourself doesn't have to be career suicide. Sometimes it's career resurrection. My relationship with work changed after that. I stopped seeing my job as my identity. I stopped prioritizing my employer's needs over my own well-being. I stopped believing that loyalty should only flow upward. Now I work hard because I choose to, not because I'm desperate to prove something. I deliver results because I'm good at what I do, not because I'm chasing a carrot on a stick. And when I train junior team members now, I tell them this story. I tell them to know their worth. I tell them to get promises in writing. I tell them that sometimes walking away is the smartest strategic move you can make. The ending of this story isn't perfect. I didn't become a millionaire. I didn't completely destroy Derek's career, though he certainly damaged it himself. I didn't ride off into some perfect sunset where everything was magically easy from that point forward. Real life doesn't work that way. But I did something more important. I reclaimed my self-respect. I set a boundary and enforced it. I chose myself when it would have been easier to choose security. And that decision rippled out in ways I couldn't have predicted, bringing me opportunities I never would have had if I'd stayed small and safe and resentful. There are still hard days. There are still moments when I doubt myself or worry about the future. But I never doubt that walking out was the right choice. Every time I sit down at my desk at Jennifer's firm, every time I work with a client who values my expertise, every time I get paid what I'm actually worth, I'm reminded that I made the right call. The scariest moment is right before you take the leap. But what you find on the other side of that fear is often better than anything you left behind. So if you're reading this, if you're in a situation where you're being strung along, being used, being devalued, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not trapped. You are not stuck. You are not being dramatic for wanting to be treated fairly. You are not being emotional for expecting people to keep their promises. You deserve better. And sometimes getting better means walking away from good enough. Sometimes it means closing the door on a chapter that's already ended, even if no one else has noticed yet. Sometimes it means trusting that your skills and your worth will carry you forward, even when you can't see the path clearly. That Tuesday afternoon in the break room, when I realized Derek had been lying to me, when I watched him laugh with Brandon like nothing was wrong, like he hadn't just destroyed 11 months of my hard work and sacrifice, I felt powerless. But I wasn't powerless. I just didn't know it yet. The power was always mine. The choice was always mine. I just had to be brave enough to make it. And once I did, once I walked out of that office with my box of belongings and my dignity intact, everything changed. Not immediately, not magically, but steadily, surely, in the direction I wanted to go instead of the direction someone else was pushing me. My life isn't perfect now. I still have stress. I still have challenges. I still have moments of doubt, but I don't have that sick feeling in my stomach every Monday morning anymore. I don't have that knot of resentment in my chest every time I see someone else get recognition I deserved. I don't have that quiet voice in the back of my head telling me I'm not good enough, not valuable enough, not worthy enough. Because I proved to myself that I am, by walking away, by choosing myself, by refusing to accept less than I'd earned. If I could go back and give myself advice on that Friday afternoon in March when Derek first dangled that promotion, I'd say this: get it in writing. Set a specific timeline. Don't accept vague promises. Don't let someone else's validation become your only measure of worth. And be prepared to walk away if the promises don't materialize. Your career will survive. Your finances will recover. But your self-respect, once you've compromised it enough times, is much harder to rebuild. Guard it. Protect it. And when someone asks you to trade it for a possibility, for a maybe, for a someday, say no. Say it clearly. Say it loudly. And mean it. The months after I walked out were uncertain. I won't pretend they weren't. There were moments when I questioned everything, when I checked my bank account and felt panic, when I saw job postings that would have been easy to get but felt like settling, when well-meaning people asked if I'd been too hasty, if I should have given Derek more time, if I should have been more patient. But I never seriously considered going back. I never seriously considered compromising myself again for the sake of security. Because I'd learned something crucial in that moment I walked out. Security that requires you to diminish yourself isn't really security at all. It's just a prettier cage. Now, when I mentor younger professionals, when I talk to people who are struggling with similar situations, I share this story. Not to tell them they all need to quit dramatically. Not to say that walking out is always the answer, but to say that sometimes it is. Sometimes the best strategic move is the one that feels the most reckless. Sometimes the smartest career decision is the one that looks like career suicide. Sometimes you have to trust yourself more than you trust the system. And sometimes, just sometimes, the bridge you burn lights the way forward. I think about Derek sometimes. I wonder if he tells a different version of the story, one where I'm the villain who overreacted and cost his company major accounts. I wonder if he's learned anything, or if he's still out there making promises he has no intention of keeping to other ambitious employees who believe him. I hope he's changed, but honestly, whether he has or hasn't doesn't affect me anymore. His story is his story. Mine is mine, and my story is about a person who was pushed too far, who finally said enough, who took a terrifying leap, and who landed somewhere better. The restaurant CEO who reached out to bring his business to my new agency told me something I think about often. He said, "When you pitched us that first time, I knew you were talented. But when I heard you walked away from a company that didn't value you, that's when I knew you had integrity. And integrity is what I want to do business with. Integrity." That word meant more to me than any promotion Derek could have given me, because I'd proven it to myself in the hardest way possible. not by talking about my values, but by enforcing them when it cost me something. This is getting long, and I know I've probably said more than I needed to, but I want to make sure anyone who's in a similar situation really understands this. You are not alone. You are not crazy. You are not being unreasonable. When your gut tells you something is wrong, when you feel that sick feeling of being used, when you realize the goalposts keep moving and the promises keep breaking, trust that feeling. It's real, it's valid, and you deserve better. Whether better means staying and demanding change, or whether it means leaving to find it elsewhere, you deserve it. Don't let anyone, not even yourself, convince you otherwise. The best part about where I am now isn't even the better job or the higher salary, though those are nice. It's the peace. It's waking up and not dreading the day. It's working hard because I want to, not because I'm desperately trying to prove I'm worthy of basic respect. It's being in a place where when my boss makes me a promise, I can actually believe it because she's shown me through consistent action that her word means something. It's being valued not for what I can be squeezed for, but for what I actually bring to the table. That's worth more than any promotion Derek ever could have given me. So here we are. That's the story. That's how my boss broke his promotion promise, and that's when I walked out. That's how the scariest decision I've made in my professional life became the best one. That's how losing what I thought I wanted led me to finding what I actually needed. That's how one moment of courage in a break room on a Tuesday afternoon changed the entire trajectory of my career and my life. And if you're standing in your own break room right now, watching your own Derek laugh with your own Brandon, wondering if you're crazy to feel what you're feeling, let me tell you clearly, you're not crazy. You're seeing things as they really are. And what you do with that clarity is up to you. But whatever you choose, choose yourself. Choose your worth. Choose your dignity. Because at the end of the day, those are the only things that really belong to you. Before you go, I need you to do something for me one more time. Drop your country in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me if this story resonated with you. Tell me if you've been in a similar situation or if you're in one right now. Let's build a community of people who refuse to settle for less than they deserve. Hit that subscribe button because I've got more stories coming that you're going to want to hear. And share this video. Share it with your friend who's being undervalued. Share it with your coworker who's being strung along. Share it with anyone who needs permission to walk away from something that's hurting them. Sometimes people just need to see someone else do it first to realize it's possible. So share it. Be that person for someone else. And remember, you're not stuck. You're just scared. And scared is okay, but don't let scared become permanent. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves out there.